Yeah, no, we were very lucky to get what I would say is something a founder should always try to do, but it's not always so easy. Reach out to colleagues who have good networks they've built over years and see if you can borrow or encourage them to use some of their time on your business. And it can help you with strategy and other things. And it recently helped us get in front of a lot of very interesting firms we would not have been speaking to. Companies like Instacart and Groupon and Dish Network and others.
Today's guest is Scott Hall. He's the co-founder and CEO of Althub. Scott, it's lovely to have you here today. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you guys do.
Sure. Thanks, Kirsten. I've been around the financial and ad tech world for too long, but 30 years, very focused on data. And it's nice that the world is very focused on data today. So it's been sort of like a second career these days. The last 5 years, I was started a company called Althub. We live in the data monetization world, which is trying to help companies that have interesting data assets turn them into new revenue streams. And it's been an exciting ride. We've been working on that hard, and we're very lucky. We have a few dozen very interesting clients, and we built a good technology, and we're hoping the market is very receptive, which it does seem these days with all the AI and talk of data economy and such.
That's awesome. Yeah. Data monetization, I think, is something that a lot of people aren't super familiar with. How did you identify this opportunity in the market?
Yeah, great question. So I think actually it's happening quite a lot in other industries. Digital advertising has always done data monetization. So maybe good and bad, they use our information to figure out what ads to put in front of us. So we're so familiar with our phones and our devices, suddenly knowing a lot about us and being able to present ads. And that part of the market has been around for easily 2 decades. It's matured quite a lot. The market that we work in is more the financial one, which is using it not for advertising to an individual like us. The data is being used to actually predict something. Is this stock better than this stock? Is this order sales going to hold up for these companies? You want to know that based on as much data because you're an investor in those companies. So it's a different part of the market and a different use case. And I had been spending many years of my career working at some of the big firms. Think of Reuters, SunGard, these large companies, Bloomberg-like companies in the industry, and had always gravitated to more the information side of it. I was less interested in what the terminal did and how it worked, more interested in actually the data behind the scenes. And I was very lucky that in looking around at the market, there didn't appear to be a firm that was automating and helping companies from other industries get into this financial alt data space. And so that was the genesis for starting Althub 5+ years ago.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done in data, and it's really interesting to hear about all of the different use cases. So in the financial services sector, are you focused on the larger enterprises or can you service anyone in that space?
Yeah, actually, we focus quite a bit on the middle market, and I think that's because the benefit that we can bring to a company. Think of a $20 million coupon data collection business in California. Actually, an example of one of our clients, and they do very well at collecting all those coupons that we use at the supermarket, and they aggregate it and process them, and that's a benefit. But to them, the incremental revenue that a platform like ours can help them with is quite significant. So generating a few more $1 million because they already have a data factory by selling it to a different use case in the financial means we're helping those companies increase their profit, often generating new cash flow for them and quite profitable cash flow. I think the earlier question you were saying quite a lot of firms don't know about it. I tend to find there's two camps. Some people who are quite aware of the opportunity and have taken some steps into it. And then the other camp, which is they're not aware of it. And it makes sense. If you're an entrepreneur and you start a firm like this coupon company, it took you a lot of hard work to build that business. And you think about everything to make that super effective. And then it's daunting to actually think sometimes of another market that you don't know the people. We are trying to lower that boundary by coming along and saying, it's not so complicated. Here's our technology. Here's some education on what this market does. If you do these four things, you will have a product. And so we're trying to reduce that friction.
Yeah, I think education is a big piece. In my mind, you know, the The upside is obvious, but I can think that there's also probably some resistance given the nature of the types of companies and the industry that they're in. There can be some resistance and maybe some fear about actually proceeding with trying to monetize data.
Well, it's back to your comment on education, because this is probably one of the biggest questions. I think there is what you don't know, you get worried about, often, and it does fall also in a few boxes. I would say the middle market companies, you can educate them that the data is really being used for a purpose that is sometimes less risky than what they're actually doing. I actually view, when I talk to ad tech companies, that the digital and privacy laws are quite strict, and especially in Europe and others, getting maybe stricter or less in the US, depending on the week. But it is there's quite a lot of rules they do have to do to maintain that data and the security around it. We're often coming along and moving that data and aggregating it, so it's actually nothing to do with individuals. It's 10,000 people did something today on a website, so it's more at a higher level. It's more to companies. So it's actually less risky in many cases, I think, the analysis. The other thing I like to say is this is quite common in the financial world. Go back 60, 70 years, they were using, paper charts and in the newspaper. I mean, the financial world consumes a lot of information to drive its decision making. And alternative data is a natural process. It just has to fit this model. There are a few companies where you do have to go a little further in explaining. One of our clients was TripAdvisor. It's a publicly traded company. And so they had more concerns about the compliance. Again, we walked them down this process, and I would say most of the data sets that are generated are actually less restrictions on them than sometimes the core market for these firms. But it's all part of education and awareness that this market exists.
Yeah. And how are you going about getting in front of those people that may not be aware of this potential?
It's a lot of work. It's I wish there was a silver I don't know if it's a silver bullet, but as an entrepreneur, you try a few different things. I think in our case it's a B2B proposition. We need to speak to product managers or head of data strategy or other C-level executives they're always concerned about revenue growth, things like that. So, we've tried a number of tricks. I would say we found a lot that didn't work. In our case, email sequencing and other approaches, we tried many of those, including the AI email tools. At least for us, we found them not very effective. Today, most of our meetings come from really two places. One is LinkedIn is quite effective. And if you send somebody a short note and it has some reference to their business, like they've recently raised some money or congratulations, you were named, best in your category. And then you make a note, have you considered, monetizing your data? It's a softball that usually gets a meeting. And so that's usually how we open the door to most meetings, is through a LinkedIn somebody. The other one I would say is luckily referrals and partners pass us names as well. The last part that's recently helped is we were lucky that there are some more senior advisors out there, I think, in the market, and we embraced one that we knew for a while, and he was exiting a company, had done well, and basically had time on his hands. So we were lucky to get his time, and he opened the door to a number of interesting firms for us. Yeah, no, we were very lucky to get what I would say is something a founder should always try to do, but it's not always so easy. Reach out to colleagues who have good networks they've built over years and see if you can borrow or encourage them to use some of their time on your business. And it can help you with strategy and other things. And it recently helped us get in front of a lot of very interesting firms we would not have been speaking to. Companies like Instacart and Groupon and Dish Network and others.
Yeah. Advisors can be super powerful. I think part of it is, and you probably know more about it than me, but I think part of it is like the right person at the right time. Um, and then like with the right knowledge and network. It's kind of hard to line up all of those things, I think.
It's very hard. When I started, I had a few there, and I think I could have invested a little more time early on, and then a few people pushed, and then sort of the middle of the organization, about 2.5 years into it, we made a real conscious effort to get more advisors involved. Super, super helpful.
So in terms of your go to market, I think it's super interesting when you talked about outbound and how you've used email and you used some of the AI tools and you didn't find them effective, but LinkedIn worked. Was there a difference in messaging or targeting? Like, why do you think LinkedIn was more powerful than email?
Well, it's probably a few things. Like one is I think the audience is a pretty senior, like head of product and other things. I just don't think I feel like cold emails have really, really been reduced, at least in that domains, the success of them. Yes, you could probably craft a message. One of the things we noticed with some of the tools was we were emailing someone 7 or 8 times with no response. You're
Mm.
probably classified already as, spam. And it's kind of interesting. Some of the AI tools I got amused because the other person was using an AI anti-spam tool. So it would email you back. Your tool would say, what it looked like pretty good copy, and it would get a response that was, actually quite funny sometimes and was very long, trying to slow you down, And it was clearly an AI response to your email. But I think the LinkedIn's are very short, and attention spans are just very, very short. Yes, the messaging quality. I think when you're doing something in LinkedIn, you're so conscious of maybe it being words or less. Where maybe these email copies still get a little too long, even though we try to follow the 250 word recommendations and other things. It's also, I mean, we're not coming in with a big brand name or anything like most companies our size, So their first reaction is, I've never seen an email with this domain.
Yeah, that could be it too. I mean, email can be tricky. There's so many factors. Like to your point, spam is one, like making sure you actually hit the inbox is probably the biggest thing. Then an open, you need someone to open it before they can reply. So yeah, there's a few steps in there. Since you're in the data space, have you leveraged any intent data or some of these other AI tools that provide signals for people in your ideal client profile that are showing interest in data monetization?
Too many on the AI side yet. We keep an eye on it, but we definitely leverage data sets, activities around. Crunchbase is always a very interesting data set to find companies that could be good targets. Events on that platform, we screen quite often looking for targets. Because we're looking at companies across any industry and we're a horizontal play, we start to get good at certain industries. Like conferences are the best sort of target lists. So like if you look at a company doing real estate, there's usually a list of attendee businesses there that could be interesting targets. You look at ad tech does a lot of industry conferences, so you can look at the attendee list on those. And so we use that as like screening tools. We have quite a lot of screening tools, but I wouldn't say yet they're necessarily saying you should go after these 20 firms using like an AI agent or something. We haven't switched quite there yet.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are still unaware of the different opportunities that in market or intent data provides. But I have a feeling in the next probably 6 months to a year, it's going to become more prevalent. It's going to be like, you have your automated outbound system, be it on LinkedIn or email or wherever, and then you pair it with intent data, people that are actively looking for data monetization opportunities and so on. We will see.
Yeah, no, I think you're very much right on that, because I think that process we tried to, and we continue always to say, is there a way to automate some of the sales steps we're doing? Recently we took a look at like tools that even try to kind of keep your pipeline moving and keep, sort of a refresh rate, automating some of those tools. I think there's a lot of promise there. I mean, AI has been transformational for our business in the data management part, because we started new products based on AI that we couldn't have afforded to build in the past, and so one of our best products is actually an AI engine that does a lot of data. Does it for a few cents per row, which is just amazingly cost efficient.
Oh, yeah, that is very cost efficient. In terms of growth, this is actually like one of my favorite questions to ask CEOs. In terms of growth, how do you measure it? Like what are some of the milestones that you think of? Do you think of it in terms of number of customers, revenue milestones, feature releases? How do you think about that? And then where do you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yes, I think one thing to be important is not to look at too many measurements, because it's hard as a small company to track those, and also think of the ones that are relevant to you, because we've had investors who have a particular list. some of it overlaps, some doesn't. I mean, I think for our business, I definitely look at number of customers. We know an average that we earn per customer relationship. So that one's an important one. Obviously, top line revenue, very important. I look at the break even number, where we are on spend, probably once a week at least, if not more. You're always looking at that number because you're trying to fuel your growth and make decisions, and you're always spending. You have to be very careful because your temptation is to tip the board into the wave to go faster, but sometimes you realize, I'm going to be 5K short the end of this month or something. So that one you have to watch very carefully because you're trying to run max growth. It's also tricky right now because I think for most of our peer group, lower end VC market is very tough, and it has been for the last few years. So raising capital is really tricky. I talk to peer group and even on Crunchbase, you don't see anywhere near the raise volumes that you saw maybe 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. There's been an enormous amount of money moving up market to anything AI with the big firms. It's unfortunate because I think it's taken away that capital for a lot of firms of our size. But the positive is it means we have to operate better. We have to be better operators based on break even, customer retention, those kind of metrics.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It kind of forces you to really become a good operator, to your point. And if you can retain customers, I think those are good metrics for growth. We provide upsell opportunities, easier to retain and upsell than to bring on a new customer. But yeah, it is a shame. I've seen a lot of money shift towards anything that's AI related, and a lot of these companies that claim to be AI companies aren't really. They've just found a way to kind of like weave something into a feature, and it's not true AI. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see what this market will look like in the next like year, 2 years, 3 years.
I think it's going to be very interesting. I agree with you. We've been, like anyone, approached by a lot of automation tool companies, and we do use, AI in the average day. I mean, I use it almost every email generation as a tool there to simplify our proposals, rewrite some of our proposals to make them look better. It's so great at these things. We do actually use it like ChatGPT to find companies. It's so easy to type in and say, we have a client X, can you find me like companies? And it does find firms you would not guess, so it's quite clever. In so many use cases. It's a little tricky for us. We've been on for 5 years and have been using like AI, the first versions, machine learning, and all these other models. And one of the things we've noticed is we don't actually put that on our literature very much. So we're in this little bit of a bind. Not a bind, it's an opportunity, but we need to start actually emphasizing, because of the buzz, that we do use this capability throughout. We've even incorporated in the last 12 months some latest technology. We're not using the word AI agents yet. I don't know, that it's a little tricky. I think if you wanted to fundraise, you would probably start using that lingo a lot more. But I think when we talk to our clients, some of them are mid-level managers and senior. You need high credibility. You want to make sure that they believe that you have been around for a while, that you have experience, that you've worked with firms like theirs, that you care about them. So we do fall back on, making sure we spend the time with them, and we ask them, explain your data. What makes it rich? What is your data? And then explain to them possible ways it could be transformed. Usually they get very interested. It's because it's their asset being allowed to fly in a different way in a different market. So I think some of that stuff is still quite high touch. I'm not sure we will change that too soon.
Yeah, that's good. Stick to your core. Yeah. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you today. If anyone wants to learn more about you, learn more about Althub, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, my email is Scott, SCOTT at Althub, which is ALTHUB.com. Our website is althub.com. We post quite a bit on LinkedIn. Please follow the company there. We like to put out pieces about interesting data events or interesting companies we meet, and kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in the environment. So please reach out via those methods.
If someone listens to this, and well, I know someone will listen to this, but I hope they reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.